Deep down a hollow, dim-lit corridor hung dripping stalactites like jagged, salivating gray teeth. Within the corridor beheld a steep, cobblestone spiral staircase. Elongated candles plastered the reinforced walls and flickered and oozed wax, serving much as artificially decorated complements to the corridor ceiling. 10 candles, each 5 spaced about 2 feet from the previous, circled the perimeter on both sides. Before one wandering bolt soul even dared to step upon the primary stone upwards, a likely absquatulate at the shrill yet brief baritone wheeze of a hair-hackling cackle. A wretched, mischievously joyous, triumphant laugh that rang as though from a belfry above, beyond a massively paramount oak door at the absolute top. 10 jet midnight pitch blackened nails jutting from leathery, craggly, slender gray claws hovered, gesticulating smoke to billow and boil for a pair of all too omniscient, flaming, bloodshot eyes. Smoke and visions. The faint, pulsating emerald glow radiating in the cauldron illuminated a series of hideous, seemingly forlorn facial features in the compact, dust-ridden cobweb, also candlelit, most spellbound room. Dry, cracked skin, spotter veins, furrowed brow, long, tangled, unkempt, snake-like hair, and upon particularly worthy future cauldron visions, chapped, crusty lips encasing 2 rows of sharp, oozing teeth, ruminating from a defiantly smug smirk. This personification of such turpitude was named Wickerstone. Eric Wickerstone. Self-proclaimed warlock, occupation scientist, basking in and dabbling in the cliche term, black magic. However, the weight of the magic bestowed upon him ages ago had taken its toll and left him jaded and bitter. So much potential magic power, not enough to spread it out forthwith into. The notion planted on his conscience was that, rid himself of an oppressive, cursed entity, he'd also required a host inhabiting a pure, vibrant energy which he could trade or lure. Such a desperate measure was called for when everything one strived for needed enlightening and livelihood once and for all. His home, the very desolate wasteland before him, needed freshening at any cost. Not to mention whatever or whomever he could trick into reaching his lair, isolated as it was, may also possess anything potentially better to offer to make any and all association flourish. Whatever it may be, he couldn't yet fathom. Professor Wickerstone scowled around at his beakers and potions and spellbooks, while these possibilities of no such determinably claimable time aided him, and made him feel enraged even more every passing bleak day. The only sound in the room being bubbling of his concoction, soft to boiling like his thinning patience. Thus here posed another conflict. He had to have a firmer or equally firm grasp on the valuable trade-off he alone so far accounted for. To be sure, the accursed magic would not be any more unpredictable than currently out of his hands. He waved his claws once more over the smoke beneath and exclaimed in his English dialect, "There you are, you blasted old codger." His vengeful snarl would have echoed had he been elsewhere, for he looked at whom he believed resembled Sir Neville, The vile, monstrous excuse of a knight that cursed Wickerstone with his heavy burden long ago in a village far away from his current shell of a habitat. It provoked a memory ere Wickerstone would sooner than later forget. He had been smitten with a fair maiden named Emily, who turned out to be Sir Neville's ward. This man had tricks up his sleeve for he'd save especially for when he took things unnecessarily personally. Eric shamed himself that his gut instinct dictated as bright as his own various colored neon potions, not to even dwell near that man. Feverish rumors spread about him like the mischievous vial of risky, unprecedented sorcery radiating from him like it presently did from Eric. For example, one such sort of tale weaved that Sir Neville was vengeful towards betrayal. Eric already despised that any man would take such a thing personally, but maybe being bestowed with such interesting ability as sorcery, Eric also kind of increasingly admired such a justifiable use for it. The tale went that Sir Neville was flirted with by a particularly amorous lass at Felix's tavern, that she liked to have the surname of a knight. However, upon grasping the bait, the lady inquired if he had a brother she could wed. How did she know his last name? He had never seen her before and kept him to himself enough not to brag who he was based on previous rumors, fabricated or documented or otherwise. The personal fury bloomed in his chest, yet he feigned a grin just as rapidly. His surname, in his opinion, wasn't even one to scoff at, let alone mock about. Elmorn. Felix, a Scorpius cocktail on me. For this sweet wench. Felix uttered not a syllable, and momentarily after set it on the bar. Well, a drink for a flirtatious jest. Flattering gesture of irony, except what makes you think I take a drink over your kin. Have as many as you can muster, and pretty soon I'll start to resemble him, milady. Sir Neville blinked a wink that Felix's instincts found suspicious, and he paused. The lady pinched the shot glass with a thumb and index finger and took a whiff of the liquidous Scorpius presented. It didn't radiate with fumes despite the container. The lass experienced a genuine expression of gratitude and swigged it rapidly down and grinned a smirk. Not bad. How long until you look like your brother? She inquired. I'm a sly dog. Shame. You'll find out first. Who? You find out you will first. What in the name of Jove? It only tasted like sweet mead. She abruptly refrained from finishing the protest, and like clockwork, a crimson rash bloomed upon her throat. A gruff, guttural groan arose. Sheer fright and panic in her eyes, she started hyperventilating and clawed and scratched the grisly spot, pulling until the skin broke and a jet of blood sprayed across the bar. A maroon-soaked scorpion emerged from the still pulsating gash as soon as she slumped deceased to the oak floor. Felix looked at the scorpion on the face of eyes staring into eternity and never blinking again, and proclaimed, I hope your brother died with more dignity than that. Why do I even serve that drink? He sighed and took the shot glass, now refilled with a tiny red cloud no less, to clean. Rhetorical or not, anything for business and a nice chat that turned vengeful, huh, pal? The tavern was not crowded or stunned by the incident, to Sir Neville's dawning realization. He looked around for kicks, and one pair of eyes parallel to the direction in which the lady appeared looked with his, implying an accusing stare. glare. He was none other than Eric Wickerstone himself. He stood up and about floated up to Sir Neville. Does a particular lad like yourself off any woman with fatal tricks, or are you having an off day before you know their names? Eric asked with only incredulity in his tone. Sir Neville took another sip and locked eyes again. Simply an off day, sir. The Angel of Death and the ferryman at the River Styx have more business than I with names that time gobbles like that arachnid through that poor old what's-her-name's doomed esophagus and trachea. Shame, really, that there wasn't more forethought considered when men who wished not to be disturbed cook up twice as many schemes in the case of the tendency of environment. Eric looked down and uttered a soft sigh and shuffled open the belts of his leather satchel and removed 2 doubloons. His imagination flashed with a brief nightmarish scenario that the dead lady would grab his arm in a fit of vengeful post-mortem rage. The scorpion had crawled away, or Felix had disposed of it already, back into the Scorpius. Or a fresh one. And Eric respectfully placed 1 coin on both eyelids. You want something to eat or drink, you have to give the next 2 to me, fella. Felix spoke up. Eric nodded like it didn't go without saying. Sir Neville chuckled. Then the whining schoolboy with the satchel. Ever heard that one from that bit about all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players? Yes. May we talk about something less daunting, like where you've gathered your magic from? Eric sulked. Oh. You beckon to it based on circumstantial material when it builds up until it uses itself from possible pressure, or it fades away depending on the ratio of energy in the practitioner in layman's terms. It's not to be toyed with nor spent unwisely, much like time itself. Therefore, life pays for time wasted, Eric concluded with full comprehension. And neither can wait, so your magic you could teach me is equal to freedom? I suppose. I'm flattered you're eager to be an apprentice just because I gave a foolish lady what was coming to her. Sooner or later, Mr. Eric Wickerstone, to introduce myself. What are my dignity, sir? Sir Neville L. Morin, at your kindly service. How about another round on me? Even the magic wielders pay. So even before leaving for our library, Sir Neville walked Eric through a complex guide of spiritually in-tuned spells. The corpse on the floor had vanished at some point, but Eric dare not question if it was Felix's doing or Sir Neville's, if he even did subtle magic favors to keep tavern business usual. Plus, Eric thought he heard Felix claim her name was Morgan, yet besides the considerable point. For instance, Eric was shown examples like such power could be summoned and maintained to eradicate the Black Plague to a ratless village, or initiated if he had spite upon someone or something, or those associated with wrongdoers, and did not right them. Sir Neville was not a teacher of forgiveness, so the rush he had obtained from so many magic-begotten possibilities ruled out letting petty inconveniences go and stained his moral character. He got the better of Eric's naive, vulnerable, eager willingness to learn too much of that power, if left unbalanced, would get the irreversible better of him and whoever Eric would teach later. After a time, Eric confessed he wanted a surefire way to keep the energy of the spells within him now constantly handy. But Sir Neville had neglected to explain was that the weight would become a conscious burden, so he didn't blame him for not tolerating nor fooling with teasing strangers.